We're there. Oh boy, oh good grief. Well, I knew something was going to go wrong. For some unknown reason, and if any of you can explain why, I will be in absolute awe of your technological understanding of the two USB ports that I can plug my microphone into. My microphone, bear in mind, not the camera, the microphone. Of the two USB ports that I can plug it in, if I plug my microphone into the wrong one, the microphone does not work. It will not work. It does not matter what I do, it will not work. I can plug the camera into either of them and that it will work. It will work perfectly. But the microphone, there is just one. Absolutely one. And Game Master's Vault, have I tried being better? You know, I just can't. There's only a certain level of awesome that I can get to. I know you've got to the next level of awesome, but some of us, it's a bit slow. Anyway, it's an interesting curiosity, and this morning, for whatever reason, I swept around the USB port. So we've got a show today, as usual. Yes, all kinds of fun and exciting things. And I thought today, you know, we don't have any live shows to review for today's show, for the Karos Stones review, which we normally do. Now, that's an option. What do we do in that space? So today I thought, you know what, I've been looking at all the races that one can play. And now, admittedly, this is for Dungeons & Dragons. I haven't looked at many other systems. But even in the other systems, I haven't seen a lot of them. Now, what might be interesting to do, I thought, anyway, was to go and create some races, some playable races. So I had to look around to see what was available in terms of helping us do that, in terms of getting the creative juices flowing. Now, I know that there have been many expansions for Dungeons & Dragons since it first came out, and there have been sort of reiterations and reiterations and reiterations. Now, one of the things that they haven't done is, at least as far as I know, so I stand to be corrected, and again, this is entirely up to you, but yeah, there's some races that they haven't included, and I want to know why. I want to know why. Why is it? Well, today we're going to try and create some races. We might create 1 or 2 or 3, depending on how much time we have, and there we go. Let's see what we can do collectively. We're also going to be answering all of your questions as usual. So it is important for you to have those questions ready. Please, 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 please preface your question with the word question in bold. We don't have our usual moderators with us anymore, so please just monitor yourselves. Don't be a muppet, and let's do that. So there are some things coming through. Omar Gonzalez asks, is this D&D centric? Well, for the character, for the class, for the race that we're creating, I'm going to be using D&D 5th edition as the basic template because it provides a fairly good structure from that perspective. What it doesn't do is provide a structure from the perspective of creating a culture, of creating how that race actually operates. And that's something that I want to explore today as well. So although the stats will be Dungeons & Dragons focused, we would be able to apply this race to any kind of system, and all that you would need to do is look at how that system translates stats and things, and then kind of puts them there. So that's something for us definitely to have a look at. Now, let's see, there's some questions coming through already. Frozen Gnome says, question first off, are you going to have the races have negative stats? Well, when you look at playable races currently within Dungeons & Dragons, not a lot of them have negative stats. Now, this is a 5th edition thing. Second edition, you couldn't do anything about it anyway. Third edition, they definitely had negative stats. Actually, 2nd edition they did as well once they released all of the races, handbooks and things. So they certainly did have negative stats and things, which I certainly appreciated, I must admit. But they have done away with that by the looks of things in 5th edition. Again, I stand to be corrected. So I'm not an authority on the mechanics of these systems and things. So there we go. Now, I am not going to be doing what I did before. Now, in the past, I would freeze the chat at the point of the question that I had answered, and then I would work through those questions as we went through. Now, that obviously creates a backlog because I can't answer every question that does come through. So that's the second point that I wanted to make, was if you ask a question and I don't answer it, copy it and paste it again later on. I simply have got, we're 114 people watching at the moment. Lots of questions coming through. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to let the stream kind of flow as there's consciousness, and then be able to sort of drop in here and have a look and just answer questions that appear on the screen here that I have next to me. So yes, there we go. Question, is this how you bold the word question? It isn't how you bold the word question. You don't have to bold it, just write it in caps lock. Shout at me and I will get there. So right, we're gonna do some, before we do the races, let us do some questions. Now, there's also no YouTube review this week. I had a look at what was out there on YouTube this week, and to be perfectly honest with you, nothing blew my hair back. I must admit, nothing blew my hair back really in terms of what other people were doing on the internet. There were reviews and sort of best rogue class and those kinds of things, but there was nothing that was really exciting, at least for me this week. Maybe it was just a slow week. Anyway, so Moonlight 18's question is, how much do you suggest to play Dungeons and Dragons? You know, this was a question that was posed to me actually by somebody else as well when they were writing in an email to me, and Dungeons and Dragons has been around for a very, very long time. I started on Dungeons and Dragons, the red box. If you don't know what the red box is, it means that either you're not au fait with the current sort of ideas of the red box, which really made its appearance, I would suppose, in the early 80s. So I was exposed to the red box and then the blue box. I never got beyond the blue box because we never played that high. Those are basically just different levels and things. So that's really where I started in the whole thing. Now, I've been playing it ever since then. I have played lots of other systems as well. Not as many as I would like, to be absolutely honest, but I have played a lot of other systems since then. Dungeons and Dragons has the advantage of being so well entrenched in the psyche of the role-playing community that almost anybody who has role-play experience knows what a D20 is, basically understands what the 6 stat blocks are: strength, dex, con, wisdom, intelligence, etc. And when you look at other role-playing systems that are out there, a lot of them still rely on those 6 basic statistics. So I certainly think that there is definitely a space for Dungeons and Dragons, so I will recommend it as a go-to in terms of getting into the hobby. You'll never struggle to find someone who plays Dungeons and Dragons. You'll find someone who struggles to play, say, Stalker or Dragon Age or Star Trek or Star Wars types of systems. So there we go. That's my answer on that one. Midnight64 says, what do you think of the Matt Mercer effect that came up this week, where Matt actually replied? Well, I certainly know that Cody was over the moon that Matt replied. Now, it's an important thing, obviously, that we look at the Matt Mercer effect. And I have been thinking about it quite a lot when it comes to that. And I think I'm going to put it into a video because I think there's a yes and there's a no to the Matt Mercer effect. I don't see, and this is I'm still kind of formulating, I'm still cogitating, I'm still looking at it going, well, is it such a bad thing? Is it such a good thing? Is there that sense of, oh, we've now all got to play like Matt Mercer and his crew? I'm very cynical when it comes to trying to imitate other people. I don't have a lot of fandom, if that makes sense. I work in television, so I know that, you know, superstars and super actors and things are just human beings doing what they think they can do best, and usually being very nervous about the fact that they don't think they've done their best. So when I look at Matt Mercer and what he and Critical Role have done, it's amazing what they've done for the hobby. There is no doubt about it. There's a massive influence. Although, having said that, I was in the UK. I was in Brighton the other day in an amazing gaming store, Dice something or other. Anyway, and I was chatting to the owner there, saying, you know, has Dungeons and Dragons picked up within the local community? And he said it certainly has, but he felt that it had picked up because of Stranger Things, that TV show with Winona Ryder in it, where they had the Stranger Things creatures and they were playing Dungeons and Dragons, or Big Bang Theory, where they were playing Dungeons and Dragons. So, and then there was the Community show. I forget what that show was called. I think it was just called Community. So it has started to become pervasive in terms of the not the zeitgeist, but the general atmosphere, I would say, within role-playing community. So, yeah, look, the Matt Mercer effect, I see there's another question here from Peter Clark. The Matt Mercer effect, from what I understand anyway, is the idea that Matt Mercer and his team are the epitome of what role-playing should be, and you need to try and get to that level where you're doing all the fancy voices and you're making all the things and the characters are completely absorbed in the situation, you know, and you've got this massive fan base who are doing character art and there's theories, and you know, it is really this idea that there is this ultimate, that's how role-playing should be, and if you don't get there, then you have failed as a GM. So it puts a huge amount of pressure on different sort of the people who watch it and go, well, our GM doesn't do all of the voices. They can't sound like an old man who's wandering around, and they don't do the squeaky goblin voice, and they don't. I don't think that has anything to do with necessarily what makes a good role-playing experience. I play with Dave from Nerdarchy. He's a very good role player, and he's a very engaging role player from the perspective that he really thinks out his characters and he really plays them through. The joke, the gag, is that he doesn't do voices. He always sounds like Dave. Now, in the one show we're busy working on at the moment, launched on Wednesday this week actually, he did put on a slight voice, a slightly goblin-esque kind of voice, and it was great to hear, but I don't think that was necessarily part of it. Also, what people don't seem to realize is that this was and still is Matt Mercer's career. He is a voice actor. It's like looking at, say, Ian McKellen or I don't know, Patrick Stewart, and saying, well, if I'm not acting at their level, I can't ever act. It's an interesting space. So White Tiger 225, welcome, thank you for that. So yeah, I need to unpack the Matt Mercer question more, I think, and I need to understand that whole thing more, and I want to talk about it because I think it is in the conscious mind. It is there. He has acknowledged that there is a pressure that he puts now down onto other role players. And as someone who does role playing online, yes, when you are a new player, a new GM, you look at someone who just seems to ad-lib stuff on the fly and suddenly transform into this or into that. And you go, wow, I wish I could do that. Well, that's why I started my YouTube channel in the first place. I believe everybody can do it. I think you've just got to find your angle. Anyway, let's not spend too much time on that. I need to think more about it. We'll think there again. We'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. Okay, next question. Zman says, what is your most favorite type of thing to make for your games? NPCs, spells, items, areas, player classes. For me, the most favorite part about what I like to make for my games is plots that involve my characters, my player characters. That for me is where I absolutely... NPCs are tools as far as I'm concerned. Spells, that's mechanical stuff. Today's the first time I'm actually delving into mechanics in terms of creating a race, but that's because I wanted to do that. So for me, it's sitting back going, so-and-so is doing this. One of my player characters is doing this. This is a bit of their backstory. I need to do this in my plot. How do I link them together? What if this was that? What if this was that? So for me, I love linking those things together. So KBW1010, welcome. So yeah, that's what I love doing the most. Absolutely love doing the most. So there we go. Check your Twitter. I just tweeted you. All right, well, I'll check my Twitter in a little bit as we're going through some more questions. Well, it's already 22 minutes past 10. Good grief. How long did I spend talking about Matthew Mercer? Anyway, right. So next question, Omar Gonzalez question. I read some games that have come out lately and noticed a pattern of going away from giving races mechanical differences. I believe this is a better approach. How do you feel about this? I don't like that, to be absolutely honest with you, Omar Gonzalez, because I like races to have differences. Why play the race if it's not going to have a difference in the first place? Something that I have noticed personally is that the sub-races, we like elves, we like dwarves, we like halflings, we like this. It's very seldom that they actually get chosen. I've had lots of games where I've had one alternative race amongst a whole bunch of humans. So I don't know. It's a tricky one. I like sub races. I like races that have got different things going on about them, and that have positive and negative sides to them. I mean, that's something that I personally like. Okay, Honorable 596 says, you live in Japan and thus presumably know about their kitsune myths. Say you have a player who wants to play a kitsune, either true to the myths version or a more modern shape-shifting magical girlfriend variant. Would you let the player do so? And if so, what rules or stat blocks would you give that player and that race? Well, yes, kitsune, it's a very interesting thing. Now, if you watch, what is it called? Is it Love, Sex and Robots? Love, Robots and Sex? Something like that. It's on Netflix. It's a series of short little anime films. There's actually one that features a kitsune in there. And what's interesting is looking at how the kitsune fits into the modern day world. It's a little bit of a trippy thing, of course, but yes, it's a space. It's something to look at. It's something that could inspire you. In terms of stats and stuff, well, we need to look at that, and that's what we're going to be doing in the stream a little bit later on when we're creating a race. Is we're going to start to unpack some of those things as to what should we look at, and what should we figure out in terms of powers and abilities and the like. The Board Lich says, question, why are there any undead races? If not, why are there any undead races? I screwed that one up. Are there any undead races? Well, there was the Revenant that was brought out. Was that 3.5 or Pathfinder? I forget now. Anyway, Revenant was brought out as a playable race. The undead carry a lot of baggage. Yes. So, undead are traditionally evil. So when you see an undead, a vampire or something along those lines, there is definitely that association of evil with it. If you wanted to play a mindless zombie, well, what's the point, right? So, yes, I think that when you look at playable races, you need to look at it within context of your campaign. So there's no point in creating an undead race whom, the moment they walk into town, are going to get set on fire by the townsfolk. It's just not going to happen. So I think that it's important that you look at it from that perspective. And if you are then going to do it, to create the race, you then have to look at a whole bunch of things, which we're going to look at today. Rat's Tail 91 says, question, what do you think of race as a class? Well, second edition, was it second edition? No. Before then, just Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, elf and dwarf were classes. They weren't races. So you chose the elf class. They came with a bit of this and a bit of that. They leveled up as a class. They had a maximum level cap, I believe. They couldn't go above a certain level. I don't like that. What that implies is that all of the species of that particular, or all the members, I should say, of that species are the same. I don't like that. If you look at the human template, if you were to say all humans are inherently militaristic, violent, they get proficiency with certain weapons, they have an understanding of trickery and deception, and they have a propensity for being hyperbolic and also hypocritical. It doesn't describe all the humans that are around there. So I really don't think that I think it's too restrictive. I like more complicated character creation processes. Now, the Traveller is one that I'm very excited of. I just got the books the other day. Someone sent them to me, and I was very excited by that. And the Traveller, your character can die in character creation. How cool is that? So you're busy creating your character, and they die before they even start the game. I think that's really exciting. So there we go. It's I think it's interesting when you have something like that. Right, so now we're going to stop questions on the half hour, so 3 minutes left of questions. Stranger, what are your opinions on spatial thinking puzzles? I'm pitting my PCs against a folding cube puzzle challenge thing, but we're online and there's no simple way to give a visual reference. Wow, okay, well, I think that's going to be your biggest challenge, is how to convey to the players this is the challenge, this is the puzzle. Can you print it out so you could email them the PDF, get them to print it out, cut it out, and then bring it with them to the session? Could you do something along those lines? I'm not sure. That might be a solution, perhaps, if anyone else in chat can think of a way to do that. Spatial puzzles, are you talking something like Tetris, where you're trying to fit different shapes together? I had a plastic star that broke apart into components, and you sort of had to put them together, and then they interlock to lock into place. So I think your best option is to try and get them a printable version, or make it more of a role-playing experience. Let them use different skills. So survival allows you to spatially orientate yourself. Perception allows you to see the different angles. Insight allows you to see that they click together. Maybe you could do it that way around, so it's a skill challenge rather than an actual puzzle. That might be a way to go. So think about that. Stranger says, how do they die during character creation? That sounds hilarious. So Stranger, I haven't read the rule system yet. I've had it explained to me, and the way that it gets explained to me is that your character grows up, and you can decide how old your character is, but every block of age you roll to see the events that happen for that character. Now that character also chooses a path, so they could choose to, say, join the military or join a teaching academy and become a teacher. You roll dice depending on certain values and things, and if you fail to become a marine, you might become a cook on a ship. But then you roll to see what happens during that period, that I think it's a year or 5-year period, whilst you are a cook on that ship. And there are instances where the ship sinks and you die. So your characters, the older your character is, the more skills and things they have to represent that they have had more life experience and the like. So I really like that. But yes, it's an interesting thing. I've got the rule book. I haven't had time to read it. I've got so much stuff going on. So there we go. All right, it is. Oh, we've got time for one more question. Peter Clark says, I'm building my own class and it is proving difficult and fun. I'd love to get your opinion and advice on it. How, where can I share it with you if you are ready and willing to read it? So, Peter, I'm going to tell you straight up, I can read it, but I really don't know about balance and that sort of thing. That's why I'm doing this race creation with you. I'm doing it with you guys, hoping that you have a more sensible approach to life. What you can do, though, Peter Clark, and I'll give 50 experience points to anyone who can share the Discord invite link. Let me go over to YouTube to make sure that that can be done. Yes. Oh, there we go. Omar Gonzalez has left us. All right. So anyone can share the link to the Discord. Peter, if you go to the Discord, you'll see that there's actually a whole bunch of channels. I'm looking over at the Discord screen now. There are a whole bunch of channels where you could drop in that character creation, and you can most definitely share it there, and people will read it and look at it. Sorry, I'm being distracted. Kev Berry, 50 experience points to you on Discord for sharing that link to the Discord channels. Thank you for that. And there we go, Stranger and RTrick17A. I'm going to give you both 50 experience points for that. So when you reach 100 experience points, you're officially allowed to call yourself level 1 character. So there we go. Right, we are on the half hour. So hold your questions, if you please. Stop asking questions. We're going to move that out. The Duke of Doom, you are hosting our stream. Thank you for hosting the stream. All right, so hold your questions. Hold your questions. We will bring the questions in later. I promise you we will come back to the questions. Yeah, I promise you we will come back to the questions. So there we go. Right, I said I was going to look at a Twitter. If you are not familiar with our Twitter, you can find us on How to GM. That's on Twitter. There are a lot of people on Twitter that we chat to, and we post updates and the like. I see there is a painting of some miniatures that's going on. There's an Elithid in there. Yeah, those look pretty cool. They look homemade, which is very nice. Always fun to do that. And yes, then there's a whole bunch of other tweets and things going on in there as well. Right, so you can find us on Twitter if you want to join in that conversation. Okay, so now we are looking at character creation. And oh no, stop that. We are looking at race creation. We're looking at creating a race. Now, There have been some requests here, specifically from the board Lich, who wants us to create an undead race. I want an undead race, an undead race, an undead race, an undead race. Well, yes, undead races are interesting, but at the same time, we were speaking about how they are limited to very specific campaigns. Now, if you remind me, I will dredge up from the bowels of darkness, the tomes of darkness, a module converter that I wrote. It was never finished, just bear this in mind, it was never finished. But it was on how to play vampires using the D20 modern system. Now the D20 modern system, I'm looking over it on my bookshelf over here. The D20 modern system is basically Dungeons & Dragons 3.75. It was just between, I think it sits quite nicely between Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 and Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, insofar as it's a D20 based system. You've got your 6 different stats, your usual attributes and things, and it doesn't have classes. It has your ability-based stuff. Anyway, so I wrote a vampire module on that. So if you ask me nicely, I will remember to give them to the web goblin, and then they can upload them, and you can have a lot of fun playing that. So that's where you could play an undead race. So there we go. Right, can we make a cephalopod? A cephalopod race. Give me sentient octopus. Sentient octopus, really, I kind of feel, is your mind flayer. If I was going to make a cephalopod, a mind flayer might be the one that I go to first. Could be an option. Okay, Nicholas Marrow, you're asking a question here, and I'm going to answer it, even though it's not question time. But I'm going to answer it anyway because, well, I can. I'm busy writing a cyberpunk setting book for a new cyberpunk rule system that is coming out, Carbon 2185. Now, Carbon 2185 by Dragon Turtle Games looks to be a lot of fun. It is based on D&D 5th edition, so there we go. We're hearing D&D 5th edition everywhere. So I'm busy writing the Tokyo setting, Tokyo 2185, for that cyberpunk setting, so I will be revisiting it when we unpack that. Kirky the Turkey says, Sea Dwarf, we want a Sea Dwarf. Drink Game Repeat is hosting the stream. Thank you for that. Sea Dwarves. Sea Dwarves are interesting. I have been thinking about Sea Dwarves. 3-Creen is another idea. Sentient Squids. What about a Fey race? There's another request for undead. Yeah, insect races. I agree. Insect races are also really, really cool. We don't necessarily have enough of them out there. Tortilithid. A tortoise cross-lithid. I'm not sure. An ant centaur. Interesting. Discord over here, they put in some suggestions. Based on medieval drawings. There's the lemur, lion centaur type of thing. There's some headless things. There's the fungi, sort of mechanoid type of things. There are a whole bunch of suggestions coming through. Actually, there is an insect race in the GM's Guide in Ravnica, but they aren't playable. Maybe make one for them. There we go. So this is the other thing, is that there are so many choices that we can look at. And we go, oh, okay, right. What about Mantis Folk? Mantis Folk is another one. I remember in the 3.5 version of Oriental Adventures, there were the Mantis Folk. I don't think you could play them, but they were definitely a monster that was there. So demigod races. Well, do we need more than just the Asima and the like? I don't know. So what we're going to do, because I think this is just going to be crazy. Wait, let's do this. What was that link for the poll? Is it stream polls? Yes, I think it was. I'm going to do this. I probably should have done this before. So I'm going to create a poll here, and then we're going to answer some more questions whilst reading that. Okay, so question is, what race should we make today? Option 1, I'm going to put undead. So these are all sentient, undead, all right? Insectoid, aquatic. What were some of the other options that I remember coming through? Let's just go back to the stream there. Monkey people with prehensile tails. That's actually been done already by Dawnforge Cast. I think he did monkey people a while ago. There was a video he did quite a long time ago, actually. Okay, let's put it in here. Magical. Oh, Fae was the other option. Right. Okay. Allow users to reset their vote. Make the stream poll. Don't care. Okay, cool. So there we go. I've got 5 different races in there. I'm creating the stream poll, and you are to please. I'm going to post this up here. There is the link. There is the link. I'll make sure that it comes through everywhere. Yep, there's the link there. Go and vote. Go and vote on that stream poll. You should be seeing something that looks like... I'm going to switch here. It looks like that behind you. So you can see the votes coming through already as we try and figure out what it is that we're going to vote for. So I'm going to wait for that to finish over. There are, according to Restream, there are 140 of you watching. Once we get to, I'm going to say 100 votes. Once we get to 100 votes, I will stop the poll and we'll take it from there. So we're on 45 votes at the moment. I'm going to let that tick over. Going to go back to questions now. So we're going to do questions until we reach that 100. Hello, Georgia, USA. Glad to have you with us. Glad to have you with us. So there we go. I'm going to post that link up again in case it gets lost. Right, so Zonlord says, question, let's talk theme. Yeah, let's talk theme. Theme. When making a custom race, there's usually a theme that is focused on in the creation, whether it be a style, a mechanic, or a general personality of the race. What is your general focus going to be? Well, Zonlord, I think that's an absolutely brilliant question. I'm actually going to write it down because I like that. We're going to talk about theme. We're going to add theme into the monster. That's going to be our creative writing challenge for today. Next question. Honorable596 says, what in-game stats and abilities would you give a Skaven playable race? Well, that's an interesting one. Honorable596, the Skaven, I would say, are very similar to gnomes, as a matter of fact. Gmonster2323 says, how many NPC voices can you do, and can you give us examples? That's a very tough question. I don't think I've ever actually calculated how many different voices I can do. How many I can do successfully is an interesting one. But let's see. If you look at just English, so if you look at just the English accent, well, you've got the very highbrow sort of English accent, which doesn't really change much from the one that I normally use, I suppose. So you've got that. Well, then you've got sort of the low down sort of dock workers who come from South London and sort of don't really say the TH sound very well. They sort of F it. So you've got that sort of thing going on. Of course, then you've got the Scots. You've got the Scottish who have their very peculiar way of pronouncing certain words and things. And if anyone's from Scotland, you can shoot me now for completely mispronouncing certain words. But yes, there's that sort of Scottish lilt to it. Then, of course, you can always go Irish. The Irish don't move the top lip in the mouth. When you watch an Irish person talking, they don't move the top lip. It's the same as the river dancing. You know the river dancing that they do where they just dance with the bottom of the legs? That's exactly how the Irish talk. So there's that. Well, then you can go into your southern kind of accents from America, where we can go and have a look at those kind of things, and you kind of have this very Tommy Lee Jones kind of accent, I suppose is the best way to say that. So yeah, anyway, there's a whole bunch of different voices that one can play with, and you just have to find ones that you can do very well and kind of stick with it. So there we go. Let's see, another question's come through. Random things indeed. Question, gonna DM for the first time as a new player to new players, as a new GM, I suppose, to new players. Got any free adventures? Yes, as a matter of fact, if you head on over to our website, www.greatgamemaster.com, you'll see that there are some free modules there. I think there's one with goblins in it, which is quite fun. you can have a look at that. Otherwise, you can join our Patreon, and every month on the $15 tier, you get a brand new adventure, custom written just for you guys, based on your voting. So last adventure was a siege type of adventure. The next one is dinosaurs. We're going to have an adventure based around dinosaurs. And then the one after that, I believe, is murder mystery. So we're going to have a murder mystery one that's done that. Michael Campbell, I believe you're actually talking about murder mysteries. In a murder mystery investigation, when the players lose the plot, is it better to see them back or let them fail and move on? No, why would we want to let them fail? If you've gone to all of the pains of making an investigation happen correctly, and your players are still not getting it, don't let them lose it. Bring them back. Bring in some rogue detective who's been watching this whole thing and now interrogates them and gives them a piece of information that they didn't have before, which might spark them to go back onto the trail. Get them back into that investigation. Don't let it die. No, don't let your work die. Please, don't let it die. Don't let it die. Right. So there we go. Another question. Scott Pickett says, is a good undead character too much? An undead character could regret his bad past. Well, the Revenant certainly had that sort of idea that they were dead, but they didn't want to go anywhere. The Santa Clarita Diet, which is on Netflix at the moment with Reese Witherspoon, no, not Reese Witherspoon, Drew Barrymore, certainly has undead where they don't mind eating human beings, but they still good people kind of thing. We've seen many instances where the undead have bucked the system and not been mindless killers. I certainly think that one certainly could definitely go that route and say, well, just because you're risen doesn't necessarily mean that you are mean, vicious and nasty. On the other hand, I certainly think that longevity, so the immortality factor, can make one very callous. Oh, I don't care about humans because you all just die in 90 years anyway. So there we go. Right. Whoa. Boy, did I get lost. How are we doing on that poll? That poll is at 69 votes and has slowed down. Are we going to get only 69 votes? We'll let it sit for a little while. We'll take it up to the hour before we go through to there. So any more questions? Yeah, there's some questions. Okay, right. Honorable 596 says, how would you handle a fungoid player race? Not just stats, but also their backstory and culture. One of the most interesting fungoid creatures that I have encountered, there's two as a matter of fact. The orcs from Warhammer 40k are a fungus. They are a plant-based species, so that's quite interesting. And then in, and of course the name's gone right out of my head, in Farscape. What was the name, for 20 experience points, what was the name of the blue priestess in Farscape who was actually a plant? What was her name? I cannot remember it for the life of me, and she was one of my favorite characters. The name of the blue woman in Farscape. Well, we'll see. 20 experience points to someone who can remind me of what her name was, because I can't Google it right now. So yes, there we go. So have a look at that. Let me know what her name was. Anyway, she was a plant, and she had certain things that she had to go through, like budding. She had to go through a budding process and turn into a tree and all sorts of very interesting things. Now, that is definitely something to bear in mind. Now, if you have just joined the stream, I see our numbers are up. We are busy voting at the moment. There's a poll going down as to what race we should make in today's stream. On the hour, we're going to start creating that race, and we're going to... Zan! There we go. Okay, Zoto, Zan. There we go. We have an absolute fan. Gradien Freystrom. 20 experience points to you. Pa'ao Zota Zan. Was it Pa'ao? It could have been Pa'ao. It sounds more familiar than Za, but they could both be right. They could have changed. She could also change. Anyway, yes, absolutely loved Zan. I thought she was a great character and a very good example of a plant-based species. If you look at Guild Wars 2, there is an entire playable race of people who are plant-based, but I must admit, Guild Wars 2, I felt let us down in terms of the races. They didn't explore them as I would have liked. They had different starting areas, they had different abilities, but did they feel different. I don't think Guild Wars pushed it far enough. I don't think they made them different enough for it to be that sort of exciting. That's what I'm saying. Okay, so Miranda does makeup. Well, fantastic. Miranda does makeup. I have a complete allergy to makeup, as a matter of fact. Even non-allergetic, non stuff. Doesn't work on me. Just doesn't work. I go bright red and start sweating like a crazy man. Now, irritated the makeup artists no end when I used to be part of the prosthetics group. You can cover me in latex. That's not a problem. Skin doesn't mind latex. But powder, put a dusting of powder. Completely gone. Anyway, right, so Draconi says, question, have you looked at the lore regarding the lesser known dragons in world lore? Like the Lambton worm from England and the Lindworm from Scandinavia. Yes, those are wonderful dragons, and I think that they are not looked at enough. Now, there are a lot of requests for dragon books, and there's lots of dragon books that come out, and they look at, you know, the oh, this is the bone structure of a dragon, or this is how dragons breathe fire, or this is... There's lots of books out there, but I think that there is definitely room for a book that does explore the alternative dragons that we haven't necessarily looked at. And some dragons have been forgotten about as well. So there we go. Okay, right, DG asked a question. I think you've asked that one before. I saw it briefly before it flicked up. There's the world builder syndrome. What about researcher syndrome? When do you stop researching and start writing or even publishing? Well, as far as I'm concerned, yes, it's important to research. It absolutely is important to research. And the more you research, the better your imagination is going to be. But I don't think that your research should ever happen before you start writing. As a matter of fact, I think you should start writing first and then start doing research. How do you know what you're going to need to research if you haven't written it down already? That's my argument. So if you don't have your world, if you don't have your first culture, what are you going to start researching? If you've got ideas, and I want a Mayan culture. Okay, I'm going to go and research everything on the Mayans. That's not going to help you. If you say I want a Mayan culture and I specifically want to have them doing the sacrifice thing, but I also want them to have a little bit more naval kind of focus because my Mayans, the jungles they live in have got large lakes and things, so I want them to have more of a naval culture. So I'm going to go and look at Polynesians as well. I would flag two things to go and research: sacrifice within the Mayan culture, and then the Polynesian catamaran or the canoes of the Polynesians. I would hyper focus. I wouldn't just whitewash yourself with just vast amounts of research. I hate that. I'm starting a channel, or at least I was going to be starting a channel in the near future. This has nothing to do with role playing. This is about script writing for feature films and things, where we talk about, if you don't have something to research, if you don't have something that you need to check, you are just wasting your time. You're going to be researching forever. You will never run out. That is a major problem. So that is definitely, my answer is stop researching right now and start writing. That's it. You've gone far enough. Just stop and start again. Start writing. Start doing whatever it is you're doing. If it's a book, if it's a setting, it doesn't matter. Just start. Go back and fix it. The Tokyo setting that I'm doing, for example, I want to infuse a lot of Japanese words into it, because the Japanese have got a wonderful way of creating these very interesting sounding words that often have multiple layers of meaning to them, etc. And I want to infuse that. I don't speak Japanese, and I certainly don't know what a good phrase or an expression might be for the end of an era, for example. So I will be writing out going, okay, so then this happened, and the XXXXX in brackets, end of era in Japanese, close brackets, carry on writing. And then I'll come back later once I've finished writing to then go, do I need that sentence in the book to begin with? Yes. Okay, cool. Now I will go and research that specific thing. So anyway, that's something to bear in mind. Right. So re-ask those questions if you didn't, if I haven't got to them, re-ask them, because it is definitely something to bear in mind. Have a look at that. So Let's see. Artix17A says, did you get my email concerning the Blood Hunter issue I had a little while back? I do get lots of emails. If I have something constructive to say, I will respond. If I don't, or if it's outside of my purview, which is usually balancing systems, rules, questions, those kinds of things, then I don't answer them. There's just too many emails coming through for me to try and even start answering them all. So there we go. If you didn't get an answer from me, it probably means that I either didn't have a decent answer for you, or it was outside of my scope of being able to actually answer that. Handsome Aaron says, I said it's gone. Well, sorry, Handsome Aaron, it's moved on. This is a new system that we're trying. It's a new system that we're trying. Right, so here we go. It's gone as well. Right, Rat's Tail 91 says, what do you think of an all-human crystal punk setting? This is for an original RPG. So everyone's made out of crystals and things. That's fine, but if everybody's made out of crystals and things, then what would be the significant difference? Would they just have different sort of powers and things? Amethysts as opposed to, say, pure quartz crystals, rose quartz, you know, would they have those kinds of things? I think that could be quite interesting. I would want to know is what separates them, what makes it more diversified. So let's have a look at that. Logan Weiser says, I am currently making a campaign for my friends and want to include Eastern themes in a Western medieval environment. How do I make each flavor present without overshadowing the other? Well, it's a good question, and if you watched this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM, which came out, no, not How to Be a Great GM, Campaign Creator Series, which came out last night or this morning or whatever time zone you're in, it came out recently, we look at how to run a session 0, which is to then test to see if one of your cultures is overshadowing the other. You can then pull back and reduce the amount of influence that is there or not, depending on how you want to do it. So have a look at that video. That should certainly help you there. I'm going to go and have a look at that poll. We're on 80 votes. 80 votes on that poll. If you don't know what the poll is, I'm going to do that, and you can go and vote for the race that we're going to be creating. We're going to be using Dungeons & Dragons template as our base for the race, but we're going to be looking at a whole bunch of other things other than just the stat blocks and that kind of thing. Okay. Right, question. Handsome Aaron, no, it's gone. Kate Anchan says, I really want to run a campaign for some specific characters that my friends have, but I have no clue what story to use. Should I use a world that I already have and fit them into it? Well, it also depends on what type of characters they want. If they want to play Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson and you only have a fantasy world, obviously it doesn't make sense to put them in a fantasy world. Or maybe it could, but I don't think it would. Anyway, so the idea is to look at the characters, think about a space that would be the most entertaining for those characters, and then decide, yes, I'm going to include it, or no, I'm not. That is how I would go about it. I might create a temporary world for them if they're not going to run a long campaign. If they just want to play the characters in a 1-shot or a 4-shot or a 5-shot, then I don't think you need to create a whole new world for that. And if you do, you don't need to flesh it out at all. It definitely doesn't need to be something that you explore too much on that. So yeah, that's how I would look at it, depending on the duration of the campaign. Eric Yeager asks the question, can you give us a sneak peek on your next character on Save or Dice after the Jade Colossus? Well, okay, so Save or Dice is a YouTube channel and a Twitch channel, which I was GMing on in the Kairos Stones. We were running a Kairos Stones. That came to an end. In May, we start our next campaign, which is called blankety blankety blank Oasis. It is called Oasis. It is using the Starfinder sci-fi-esque magic themed space. And a sneak peek of the character that I will be playing. I will be playing a brain, and that's all I'm going to be saying. I will be playing a brain, so you'll have to watch out for that in May. Yes, I will be playing a brain. Anyway, I certainly had a lot of fun with character creation. The character art that Cody has commissioned for that show is absolutely stunning. I totally look forward to that session. I think that should be a lot of fun. Jack Daniels says, how do you deal with a PC whose flaw is not speaking? Jack Daniels, I want you on Sunday night or Monday morning or Saturday afternoon, or probably mid-lunchtime on Wednesday. The next video that comes out on my YouTube channel, How to Be a Great GM, is dealing with that exact question. Give that video to your player, let them watch it, and if they still want to be someone who doesn't talk, well, I'll be surprised. I'm doing a video. I did a video, literally. It's uploaded. It's ready to go. It's just waiting for its release date, which is Sunday GMT, sort of 9ish, whatever. It comes out tomorrow, basically. Oh God, I hate time zones. Anyway, it does come out, and it's definitely going to be there, and it definitely answers your question. So go and have a look at that. Vitalius Moticus says, how do you play a mind-reading nemesis like a Rakshasa? Interesting that you asked that question. Next week, Great GM video. Wow, this is amazing. Next week's Great GM video, we look at the slasher villain. The slasher. Is it next week or the week after? Anyway, the slasher villain. Now, the slasher villain is quite a cool character. They're very flat characters, usually. Slasher villains, we talk about things like the Alien from the Aliens franchise. We talk about Freddy. We talk about Jason from the Nightmare Nightmare on Elm Street and the other one. Anyway, so those are creatures that have a certain amount of mind-reading capability. When you talk about Rakshasas, Ithalid, or a diviner who has the ability to read minds and things, it does become challenging. It does become interesting from a GM's perspective. And you just have to explain to your players, look, you need to tell me what your character is thinking, be open and be honest about it, and yeah, take it from there. You really do sometimes just have to just be open and honest and say, look, this is what the character can do. Your guys can do it to my monsters, my monster can do it to you. Big Ivan says, any tips on pushing D&D campaign into sword and sorcery rather than high fantasy? Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's a really interesting question. How do we make high fantasy or how do we make sword and sorcery anyway, where you have one sorcerer in the land, maybe 2 or 3, and not a lot more than that? Well, I suppose the very first step that you would do is when your characters are being created, when your players are creating their characters, is tell them there is no magic beyond level 3. So if you're creating a wizard, you will not get beyond level 3, or maybe even level 2, depending on how much you want to restrict it. So that immediately tells them, whoa, okay, if I play a mage, I'm not going to get beyond that level. What you do need to do, though, is compensate for that fact. If there's a player who doesn't want to play a knight, whom arguably is the least nerfed in a sword and sorcery type of setting, if they want to play the scholar, what are you going to give them? What advantages, what benefits, what reason would they have of not wanting to, or of wanting, I should say, to play a non-combat character? So you need to think about that quite carefully. Okay, it is on the hour, so let's have a look at that stream. We got to 86 votes. I think that's pretty good. I'm going to put the link down just once more. Let's have a look at that once more. I'm going to answer some of these questions that are coming through, because the questions are coming through thick and fast. I'm having difficulty even keeping up. White Tiger 225 says, what is your view on asymmetric race mechanics, i.e. one race being clearly better, more powerful than the other? And what would you call it? Okay, so basically, long and short of that is asymmetrical characters means that you are going to get asymmetrical players. You're going to get players who choose to play that race because that race is mechanically better than anything else. Players will find a reason to play that race. They will say, oh, well, I want to play that race because it fits my backstory, which was designed to fit the playable race. So, yes, asymmetrical characters that are imbalanced are going to cause everyone to flood to that imbalance. They're going to all move towards that side. You're going to get one player or 2 players who go, well, I like a challenge of being weaker than my fellows, so I'm going to play something else. So the mindset of today's players is more about a balance. It's more about trying to find that space where we can all be equal and all be the same while still being different. The old school mentality of, well, that race is clearly better than that race, so we're going to tweak and adjust. So there we go. Those are some options for you to think about. They don't go down so well these days. At least that's certainly what I've found. The Dueler says, will your new race have new mechanics, abilities not yet featured in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition? Well, that's going to be up to you guys. We're going to be creating this together. We're going to be creating this race together. So Maybe if the race needs it, then the race definitely will have that. Okay, let's see any more questions. Ban the crazy races. Okay, yeah, I like that one. Opinion on Pirate Dragon World. I love Dragon World and I love Pirate Worlds. As a matter of fact, I've been thinking quite a lot about pirates recently, and yeah, so that's what I've been thinking about a lot. Long Island dude says, question, I was thinking modern military versus fantasy sort of things. The players are special forces that are investigating an area where fantasy sort of riders come out of a portal and take over a few towns. How can I set that up? Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency on Netflix is all about that. Well, second season is anyway. Excuse me. Let me have a drink here quickly. Okay, so, Dragon de Jus, thank you so much for that donation. Now, donations on Super Chat and bits on Twitch are going to be going towards this thing down here, the Flight of the Goblin. Now, the Flight of the Goblin is basically paying for the Web Goblin. He is the genius behind things like our website as well as RPGTableFinder.com. If you're looking for groups, if you're looking for GMs, if you are wanting to run a game, whether it's online or actually around a real table, RPGTableFinder.com is something for you to go and have a look at. It's free. There is no cost to it whatsoever. So you can create tables, you can find people, you can chat to people online before you actually start role playing with them. You can look at their history and see how much they've done before and all those kinds of things. So definitely go and check that out. Anyway, we want to get the Web Goblin to Gen Con this year. That's in August in Indianapolis in the US. The Web Goblin is based in South Africa, in Johannesburg. So we're trying to raise money to get them this. So any super chats that you send through today, as well as bits on Twitch or donations directly on Twitch, will go through to raising the bar. We already raised $1,567, which is it's pretty damned amazing so far. Anyway, so that's something to bear in mind. Right, Pino Arias had a question, which I now can't see. So DG's question was, do you miss having overpowered races in D&D that simply took longer to level up and started at a lower level? Oh, the good old days where elves progressed slower than humans and rogues always progressed faster because of the silly idea of getting XP for each coin that they found. So yes, it's an interesting idea, and I think that it certainly can offset those asymmetrical races that were being spoken about before. If you have a race that has definitely got an advantage, well, slowing down its progression works quite well. If XP is something that features in your game, most people nowadays just use milestone leveling, so then the XP thing doesn't really come into play, which is kind of sad. Unless I suppose you said you need 2 milestones to level up rather than just the usual 1. So there is that option. Yes, Douglas Adams wrote the books Dirk Gently, Holistic Detective Agency, which this show is based on. I'm busy watching that show at the moment. It's I think it's a lot of fun. It's kind of weird sometimes. Sometimes I'm going, what the hell is going on? DG, thank you for that $2 super chat there. I do appreciate that. Right, I'm going to check this poll out. 94 votes. Oh, look at those bits. Thank you for the bits. Why is it in purple? I'm going to have to go over to Twitch and see who did that. White Tiger 225, 100 bits. Every little bit helps. Absolutely, it does. I certainly do appreciate that. We're at 94 votes. 94 votes. Is there any way we can get it higher? If you haven't voted, or if you're going to log in with a VPN and go and vote again, just get through there. Go and vote, and let's see which race we're going to be building. We've still got 55 minutes of the show left, so we've got plenty of time to make this thing. Right. Mutama says, hi, Guy. Well, hey, how you doing? I started that question, so I'm going to carry on with that question. My friends always complain about me not GMing for them, but when I do, they're always demotivated or uninterested. What should I do? I've tried everything. Durbanage, thank you for that. Durbanage. Thank you for that donation. We do appreciate that. So, Mutama, it's an interesting question. Your friends ask you to GM, but then they don't like it when you do GM. That's very odd. Drink, game, repeat. Thank you for that. I do appreciate. I certainly do appreciate that. It's really kind of you. So poll is 95 votes, 5 votes to go. You know, when your players ask you to run a game and then they don't seem to like the game that you're running, why don't you interrogate them, or maybe have you interrogated them in a nice, polite way? Of course, you don't have to strap them down and get electrodes and things and batteries and whatnot, but you can just ask them and say, well, what do you want me to run? I'm sure you have asked them that question, so I hope that might be able to help you. Ask them what they want you to run. Ask them what type of genre they want, what theme they want you to run with. It could be something along those lines. It could also be your pacing. So again, this week we released a video on timing. If your timing is wrong, your players might really like the world that you created. They might like the ideas that you've got behind your show, but your timing might be wrong. So you might be a little bit too slow or too fast. You're not allowing them to actually enjoy the space they're in, or you're taking too long to get somewhere. So then they start to get bored as well. So have a look at that video on timing. Maybe that will give you some insight into how you can handle that situation. Right, Stranger says, how would you handle anyway, a PC whose player is semi-frequently absent from games? I'm not even going to finish reading that question. Players who are semi-frequent. The moment you use the word semi-frequent, i.e. more than one in 8 or 9 sessions, how do I handle them? Goodbye. If you didn't give me warning up front, if you didn't say, look, I want to play in your game, but I'm probably only going to make about 50% of your games. Sorry, that's not good enough. Everybody else is taking the time and making the efforts to sit around a table and have fun, or to log in online. If you can't be bothered to get there, if your life is so busy that you don't have the time to do it, don't screw up the time for everybody else. It's a very personal issue that I happen to have, because when someone doesn't arrive, it's not just them that's being affected. Oh, shame they can't get to play in the game. It's everybody else who's sitting at the table who has either invested in their character, or is invested in the plot, or the plot is based on that particular character. It's not there. I can feel my blood pressure rising already. Players who miss multiple sessions of a game, I say to them, thank you for playing, fond farewell, good luck finding another group, you useless hippie, why don't you go and die in a ditch? Or you know, I mean, maybe not that extreme sometimes, but it has been known to happen. Disillusioned Weasel says, currently writing a campaign and gotta ask, do I need a main villain? Currently I have many independent groups and obstacles driving the party, but I don't have a single main villain. Well, Disillusioned Weasel, you don't have to have a main villain. We call them a nemesis in the YouTube channel. Your nemesis is the primary monster that sits right over everybody else, rather than sort of just a weekly race type of thing. So yeah, it's you don't have to have a villain necessarily every episode. You can just have instigators and things that do come through. But is it going to give you a long-term goal? Is it going to give you a long-term campaign? Maybe it will. So there we are. Terranatum, hello and welcome to the stream. We haven't seen you around for a while, Terranatum. Come to think that you haven't seen me around for a while either. So there we go. We're equal. All right, 95. I think we are pretty damn good at 95 votes. So I'm going to pause the 96 vote. Oh, one more vote. Oh, I'm so tempted to leave it up. I'm so tempted. We're so close to that goal. If you haven't voted, go and vote now on the race that we're going to be creating. I'm going to take a few more questions because I think everyone is really enjoying the questions that we're going through. Sean says, I play with a GM who spends almost no time on prep work and relies totally on his improv skills. Draws from our backstories or previous settings, but lacks his own world story. Advice. Sean, my question to you is, are his games bad? Do you get bored? Do you find that they lack cohesion? Are you not having fun? A GM who relies totally on improv sometimes does feel like a GM who's not doing their job. But what is a DM's job in the first place? If it's to create an environment in which your character can go around and generate stories and have fun whilst doing so in a fairly robust, fairly fair and just environment that has cause and effect, if that's what their character, if that's what your GM is doing, are they doing a good job or not? So if you're not having fun, if you find that it's like, oh God, he didn't plan anything, did he? So he's just making this whole thing up. If you find that there's lack of cohesion, then yes, absolutely. Chat to your fellow players. Chat to your fellow players. There's the vote link again. Chat to your fellow players and see if they feel the same. If they're having fun and they don't mind the fact that the GM doesn't do any kind of planning, then absolutely, absolutely. Raise it with the GM and say, look, if you don't like GMing, I'll take over. And then be prepared. You need to set the bar. You can't just say, oh, you must prepare more. Well, maybe they don't have time. Maybe they're not interested. So there's definitely something to have a look at. Right, I see that someone was saying Honourable 596 has been attempting to ask an interesting question for quite a while now. Okay, so there's Honourable 596's question. Would you allow a player to make a hive mind race? What challenges would you impart on them both in a mechanical and a role-playing sense? Well, hive mind race is very difficult because unless the hive mind has stats which allow your characters to work within the environment, remember, you're trying to create a balance, generally speaking, a balance between the character's powers and something else. So hive mind, generally speaking, seems to bring about a huge amount of intelligence because there's lots of stimuli coming in. Except that when we look at the greatest example of a hive mind in science fiction, the Borg from Star Trek, that doesn't seem to be the case. So the hive mind becomes a series of whispers and things which could act as bardic inspiration, allowing the character to be able to zone out of their present state, listen in on the whispers of the hive mind and ask a question. You could also play it that the hive mind is like Google. And so when the character zones out and goes, how do I get to Mordor from Google? From here, you type in the question and you're going to get 15 adverts first on where to buy Lord of the Rings, how to get hold of Frodo. There'll be some spammy stuff, some porn stuff guaranteed. You know, so it depends on how you build it. But hive mind is difficult. And yeah, I think it's an interesting space for them to play in. Where does the personality reside? Does the hive mind allow for personality or does it remove it? If there's no personality, if it's just a sort of collective space, then the character, the player, is basically playing the hive mind, and the individual that is interacting with the players is just an extension of it. So it's like, here's my little finger, you're dealing with my finger, I'm actually playing with the whole entity, but you're just seeing my little finger. So that's also something to bear in mind. So there we go. Right, it is now almost 15:15. We have reached 104 votes. Well done. Congratulations, everybody. I think that's absolutely brilliant. Let's bring this up for you so you can see that there's no cheating going on here. Magical creatures. Nope, nobody liked magical creatures. Undead. I'm sorry, Board Lich. You got outvoted there. The Fae. Nein, das ist nicht gut. Ich will nicht haben eine Fae. So there we go there. Aquatic, almost, but still no cigar. Insectoid. The insects win. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so the insects win. Lovely, 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 lovely. Good. So great response there. Thank you, everybody. Right, so we're going to design an insect race. An insectoid race. This is how we're going to work it, which is interesting because then that brings us to kind of like the hive mind character that you were talking about. Wrong screen behind me. So there we go. We're going to bring in this hive mind insect-like of thing. So you get your good luck there. Chitty Bang Bang 81 says Sense 8. Yeah, Sense 8 is not a bad idea. I haven't watched too much of that series. I've been fascinated by it, but I don't know. I kind of try and get into it and I start watching an episode and then I don't know. It's not holding me. Anyway. Perhaps it's because the Kenyan character is actually not Kenyan but South African. So maybe that's the problem. I know that that's a different story. Right. So okay. So we're going to be designing an insect-based race. Very first things that we need to start looking at is thematically, what is this race going to do within our world? Are they going to be conquerors? And this is broad strokes, by the way. Are they going to be conquerors? Are they just going to be a playable race? So in other words, they are a race that allows for them to interact with the elves, with dwarves, with satyrs, with centaurs. Is it a sci-fi kind of race? We are using D&D stat blocks, but it could still be a sci-fi kind of race. How do they interact with their environment? I think we're going to make something that's going to interact with other races. So they're going to work with the elves, they're going to work with the dwarves, they're going to do all those kinds of things. They're going to really sort of interact with one another. So I don't think that we need to worry too much about that. Scholars, peaceful ones, says White Tiger 225. I agree. I think that is something that we need to look at. I think an emphasis on building in that race would be great. I like that. Goku Derakun. I like that idea because yes, that's great. That's a great idea because they are builders. We like this idea. If you look at most insects, there's a strong, well, not most insects. If you look at some insects, there's a strong emphasis on building. So I like that idea. So they're builders, they're constructors. The next question we have to ask, I think anyway, is are we going to have lots of different sub-races? So if we think of, say, an ant colony, we've got the warrior ants, we've got the worker ants, we've got the queen ant. Are we going to go in that kind of way? Are we going to look at it more in the mantid kind of idea, the mantis kind of idea, where we'd have to change some of the ways that they work because they're isolationist until they mate, and then of course there's the whole kind of thing. So we need to figure out how they're going to work on that one. I do like the idea of let's play around with this hive mind. Let's see if we can unpack it and add it in so that it actually does work. So I quite like that idea. The challenge that we have when we go warriors, builders, scholars, and the like, we're starting to create classes as well as a race. To a degree. Because could a warrior be a wizard? Yes, I suppose they could. Could a builder be a wizard? Yes, again, I suppose they could, but they would be more of the transmuter type as opposed to the evoker type. Okay, so yes. All right, let's do that. So we're going to have builders. They're going to be peaceful, generally speaking, but there will still be violent megalomaniacs within that because I don't like the idea of whitewashing a race as, oh, they're all peaceful, so they're all kind of peaceful. Builders, and we're going to have warriors, builders, obviously. What else did we say? We're going to have warriors, we're going to have builders, we're going to have scholars, and we're going to have a queen. Now, generally speaking, we have queens in nature because they're the ones that lay eggs. They're the ones that produce the next colony. They're the ones that go out. And the males often are just drones that are there primarily to impregnate the females, and then they can go off and die. So, is that what we're going to have? Are we going to have this hive mind? I'm just putting some notes down here. Hive mind. Is it a queen? Is it a queen or is it a ruling class? Is it perhaps a hive mind that is made up of different minds? So, in other words, it's not just there is this Borg queen that rules throughout everybody, but that there is a representative of the warrior class, there's a representative of the builder class, there's a representative of the scholar class in this kind of grouping. And that those collectively are linked and everyone then links into them. So that everyone becomes almost an extension of that. I'm not sure. I mean, let's have a look and see. Would the sexed members have wings too? Well, it's an interesting idea. Do we want them to have wings or not? We're going to come to that in a little bit. So yeah, I think let's put in the noble class or the ruling class. Yeah, a council of minds. That council becomes the sort of hive mind, if you like. Server bugs, yes, I think that's a little bit more terrifying than that. So there we are. I think the Queen starts out from a biological point, but as they gain intelligence, the Queen started to become great organizers. Yes, I think so. I think that's quite a nice evolutionary sort of point there. I quite like that. So there we go. Hello Future Me made a series of videos on this sort of subject. Go check out his videos on world building when you can. Absolutely. Hello Future Me is a great series. Hive mind, multiple hive mind bugs from a singular consciousness, like the brain rats from Planescape Torment. Okay, so we're kind of happy with this idea. I see Critty Bang Bang 81 says, okay, what makes an insect? Is it chitinous armor? Is it alien senses? Is it pheromones? Is it cyclical surges in activity? Is it having your ears in your legs? What is this sort of idea? Hunters and gatherers. Yeah, so we have warriors, builders, scholars, nobles, and then I think we should have farmers. Whether it's leafcutter ants and they're going to go and, they're going to cut down stuff and that sort of thing, I'm not sure. Right, so butterflies. That's a cool idea for a race. I want to play a butterfly. There's an interesting question. When we look at the life cycle, pupae, well, eggs into pupae, pupae into cocoons, cocoons into these things. Are we going to go through that metamorphosis process? Is that what our race is going to have? So many interesting questions that come out of it. Now, we need to slow down a little bit, because we could create this hive mind where we have this amazing race that can fly, they can see in the dark, they can communicate by scent, they have all of these kind of cool superpowers and things, and we create this asymmetric, to use the word of the day, this asymmetric race. I don't think that's what we want to do. So we need to set ourselves some parameters, and that means we need to now start to look at what are the parameters that Dungeons & Dragons gives us as our framework for statting out a playable race, because that's the important thing. Now, what it's going to do is it's going to restrict us, point number one, but that restriction is good because it means we're going to have to come up with some creative workarounds. So bear with me here as I'm just going to move the chat box over there so that when I go here, you can see what's happening. Now, I am going to take us over to World Anvil, worldanvil.com. They are our partner of choice in terms of world building, and one of the things they have is create a new RPG stat block for a new race. And they have distilled, basically, everything that the Player's Handbook and the DMG and all of the subsequent handbooks have got into a template, which we can fill in. It's great. And then there's going to be some other bits and bobs that are going to come up. I also happen to have with me, just that we can reference it, a handy copy of the Monsters Manual, so we can kind of go, okay, cool, let's see what this monster can do, let's see what that monster can do. Not that monsters should be our go-to guide, but we can look at it from a perspective of saying, okay, well, what is the closest insectoid creature that we can find? That, I think, would be the three-creen. PQRST... three-creen. The three-creen. Those lovely little six-armed creatures. That might be something for us to look at as a potential base. They are a challenge 1, which again could be indicative of, okay, this is a race that we could create. So those are going to be our basic parameters of operation. Can I put this there without it exploding and dying? Yes, I can if I put my screen cleaner on top of it. Okay, all right, and there. Yeah, doesn't matter. Okay, so I'm now going to move this over here so I can see what is coming through. Jump to the new messages. Boom, boom, boom. Right, I think that either burrow or climb speed, butterflies, the metamorphosis. I really hope we don't do hive mind. Well, let's see. We're going to be unpacking this and we're going to be looking at that. What if the hive mind could take over the individual at will? Now we start getting into the Mass Effect kind of space. I don't know. Insectoid mean low constitution. Well, there we go. That is something to think about. Okay, let's start plugging in some numbers. Oh boy. Name. What is the name of this race that we're going to be adding in here? What is the name of this race that we are going to be adding in? Let's give it a name. Mantids? Is it a mantis? Are we going with that sort of idea? Three Kreen is a very, very abstract kind of name. Umber Hulk, Chul, different kinds of names. Let's give it a name. The Creeny, Bugkin. Bugkin, I I like the idea of the name of Bugkin, but well, it's not a very positive name. Let's put it that way. It's not a very positive name. The Carapin could be quite nice. The Throng, but negative. The Dal, yeah, could work. Chitwalker, no, definitely not when you say it out aloud. Krelicerin, the Krelicerin, the Art, the Entkin. I'm thinking too much sort of wood there. A Hasper, the Hasper. I quite like the name Hasper, I have to admit. If we're going ants, the Chartamar. Chartamar, Hasper's quite nice. Antlier, the liar part has a negative connotation to me. Scroll, isn't that from Marvel? The Ix, the Sectari, Hemiptera. Now that's an interesting name, considering that its connotations are the Chrysales, the Chrysalid kin. Hasper is kind of getting some voting there, informal voting. The Spreen, I love the name Spreen, but not necessarily for this. I think Hasper is going to be the winner here. Yeah. Hasper, I think. Hasper wins. Okay, we're going to put in Hasper for now. The Hasper. I do like the name, the word Spreen, though. It's got some consonants and some vowels in there that I love. The Spreen. I think that's really cool. I hope that's one that you came up with. The Spreen Hasperians. How to put the two together. The Vespids. Vespids is really cool as well. You get that sort of wasp-like idea. Maybe that's what we can call the Flyers. I don't know. Let's see where we go. All right. So, generally speaking, ability scores. Oh boy. The ability scores within the framework of Dungeons and Dragons is always a +1 to something and then a +2 to something else. So this is where we've got to think about how this all fits together. How are we going to merge this thing together? So all the names, I like all the name suggestions that are coming through. The Haspa. Yeah, I maybe not the ER. It's just an A. All the other names we can use for the other races. We can use for the subclasses. So we could have the Spreen or the warrior class, the Vespids are the scholarly class, etc., etc. So we can go there. So an insect. When we think of insect, I think something that has to be at the forefront of our minds are insects are strong. They are incredibly strong. So I see some people there are putting in +1 to strength, +2 to dex, intelligence +2, dex +1, constitution +2. I think strength has to definitely be there. They definitely need to have a lot of strength. Just because insects are always about, oh, I can carry so much weight. Question, should we have a negative stat? Not at the moment. It hasn't been part of the D&D 5th edition kind of basing as far as I have seen. It's always about just giving positives, not taking anything away. So I think strength is a good one. When we talk about the hive mind, we could be talking about an increase in intelligence, or it could be an increase in wisdom. Because what does a hive mind allow you to do? Let's try and unpack this a little bit. If we go with a hive mind is the collective knowledge of all of the individual tendrils that are out there, all the little things that are out there, is what if we then said, okay, cool, this hive mind, if they're all just in the same environment, their intelligence isn't necessarily going to go up, but their wisdom might go up. So what if I'm proposing +2 strength, +1 wisdom? What if we did that? Would that satisfy people for now? I see there are some suggestions that for the Vespinar, that we add in some other bits and bobs. We could certainly do that. Just dropping books and things. I need to put this book somewhere else. Where can I put this book? Let me open up this drawer here. There we go. Let's do that. Okay, so we're going to put that book there for reference. All right. So I think we're pretty good on that one. +1 strength, +1 wisdom with another +1 for the sub races. Let's see how well we go. With sub races, we might have to come back to because I'm worried about the time now. So, okay, so let's go +2 strength. So it's +1 wisdom, +1 whiz, and +2 to strength. Okay, medium-sized creatures. I think. Do we see them as being small insect creatures like gnome and halfling height? I'm not sure. Should the base race just be +1 and then the sub race is given a +2 specific? So, Wolvie Zandalari, I think that's a good question to ask. I think that for now, let's create the base race as if there weren't any sub races, and then we're going to come back to the sub races because we are already on the half hour. We only have half an hour left. Maybe we carry on with this exercise next week if it proved popular. Maybe we don't. I'm not sure. Let's see. So, yeah, I think everyone is saying medium or small. Small insects is overdone. Small with strength is a bit iffy. Yeah. I think so. So I think medium is kind of okay. Medium. I think everyone's going with medium. I like small bugs. Sure, I like to see them as being comparable to human in size. Yeah. You know what it also does is it takes away a lot of the issues that come in with small races. I have never liked how halflings and gnomes have been treated within the D&D environment. In Lord of the Rings, we saw in the movies, we saw the hobbits going into Bree on a special, they had to have a special bar made. Anyway, those are things that I think that we need to take into account. So I think medium is absolutely fine. Maybe some of the sub races can be small. Maybe the scholars can be small. Maybe the nobles can be small. But the builders, the warriors, and the farmers are medium. We can have a look at that because certainly within the insect world, a precedence for that has been set. Movement speed, 30 feet. If they're medium, 30 feet I think is going to work, to be perfectly honest with you. I think 30 feet is fine. I don't see why they would move slower. I don't see necessarily why they would move faster. So, yeah, look, I mean, Mark Miner suggests as big as a centaur, maybe with 4 legs. Again, that could be the warrior class. Could be big, really big, right? So we can look at that. All right. So yes, speed I'm going to put here because I didn't break it down. So we're going to say speed is 30 foot. Okay. And then there's a suggestion here that they've got burrow or climb. Burrow or climb. Bugs tend to be quite fast, so maybe give them a base speed of 40. Again, remember, if we give them a base speed of 40, we need to then hold back on other abilities and features. So let's leave it at 30 for now. Okay, so climb or burrow. Are they burrowing or are they climbing? I think climbing. Climbing speaks more to me about what insects do. I think. So I see so many burrowers, and burrowers bring up huge issues. Yeah, burrowing is a bit of a thing. So I think climb. Yeah, I think climb, and I think climb at 30 feet as well. So they've got that ability. Right? Okay. So we've got climb and we've got regular movement. Now, the languages. Okay, so let me put this into context. let me put this into the context of what is going, what we're working with in our confines. Generally speaking, there are 3 abilities that the race will have. Those could be, and I've written them down here, they could be a resistance to damage or an advantage on a saving throw. We've got chitinous armor. I mean, I don't know how on earth one wants to pronounce it. I've heard it so many different ways. We've got chitinous armor that could give them a damage resistance against, say, slashing and piercing weapons. But we could also go with something else. Maybe they breathe through their legs, so I don't know. But generally speaking, they've got 3 things. So they've got usually a resistance to damage or a saving throw advantage, 1 or 2 skill proficiencies, or something that improves the character sheet in a way. So something that would work there. And then a flavor power. Now the flavor power, for example, the Dragonborn's breath weapon is a flavor power. The ability to cast spells, certain types of spells for the drow and the tiefling, is a flavor power. So we need to balance it and say, okay, so what is our flavor power going to be? Is it that hive mind ability that they can call on the hive mind to gain a bonus to skills and things? Is that what is going to be our skill sort of attribute type of thing? That's something to think about. Is it that they have a pheromone language and that is what it's about? Is it that they don't have an actual language, it's just pheromones? If that's the case, that becomes a cultural power. So we need to balance that off slightly. So we're going to say that they speak common because we want them to be able to interact with the rest of the party. Okay. But we need them to fix and to fit somehow into this idea. So I quite like the idea that we've got some options going on here. Blind sight, armor, adhesive goo. I've seen spider silk. I've seen flying. All kinds of things that can go on in terms of creating these things. Pheromones is a thing, especially for ants. Bees use pheromones. A lot of things use pheromones. Ability to grapple as a bonus action with their extra limbs. Do they have extra limbs? That's what we've got to take into account as well. Why did we choose one of the more difficult races to work with? The 3 Kreen, I'm looking at the 3 Kreen here, and they've got a chameleon carapace, can change the color of its carapace to match the texture of its surroundings, giving them advantage on stealth checks. So that's the skill proficiency we were talking about. Standing leap, the 3 Kreen's long jump is up to 30 feet, and its high jump is up to 15 feet without a running start. Okay, so that's the cultural kind of idea. They are sleepless. They don't require sleep and can rest while remaining alert and performing light tasks. But it's also why they have such short lifespans, with a life expectancy of only 30. There are some variants, psionic attacks, that sort of thing, but generally speaking, not very insectoid, to be perfectly honest with you. I would say extra limbs that can't hold weapons or shields. Would it be extra limbs or legs or both, as Portentious says? Interesting. If we go with the pheromone power, you could gain advantage on charisma checks. Similar to the Telvanii bug musk from Elder Scrolls lore. Yeah, we could do that. What if the extra limbs were a small set of scythe-like claws? All races with extra limbs in D&D 5th edition are balanced by not getting extra actions from them. Yeah, absolutely. There are always going to be players, though, who say, well, I've got extra legs, so can I get an advantage to grapple? Can I get an advantage to this? So we need to take that into account. The pheromone language could be an interesting one. I see that, Frozen Gnomes in Discord has posted up a link here to Detect Balance. Detect Balance, a 5th edition homebrew race guide. I'm going to share this with you guys so you can have a look. I think you can already see that because I opened it up in the thing. So there we go. A ribbon, not likely to make much difference. Sometimes useful feature, frequently useful feature, unusually powerful feature, right? So synergy type of stuff. That's something to think about. Okay, the scores we already fixed on. Language, +1 language is 0 modifier. Okay, that's great. Skill proficiencies we've spoken about. Okay, magic we've spoken about. Resistances we've spoken about. Vulnerabilities we've spoken about. So that's quite interesting. Are there any vulnerabilities? I noticed someone said perhaps poison was a vulnerability. So perhaps poison could be in there. Climb speed, I see they've got some modifiers in here. So there's lots of number crunching going on in here, which we certainly can make use of. And I would love it if someone were to punch in what we end up with into this whole system, because Excel scares me. And we can have a look and see how close we get to that. So let's go back to the chat, he said, hopefully trying to find his chat channel. Right. Okay. Communicate to the same race without a verbal component. It actually isn't in there, I don't think. Would that be something that we would see as being useful all the time? I don't think so. I think it would only be useful when communicating with other Hasper, because if there aren't other Hasper around, they won't pick it up. So I think we can say here, what someone was calling it, there were some names that came out for the pheromones, but pheromone, let's just put pheromone for now. we'll make it look nice, and that sort of thing. Okay, so our three things. Have we decided upon them yet? Extra limbs allow them to be immune to falling prone. That's really powerful. There's lots of fighter and barbarian things that cause you to be knocked prone. Can regenerate lost limbs but not HP given XP. Oh wow, some really cool stuff coming through here. Compound eyes can see 360 degrees, so they have advantage on not being surprised, or not, that doesn't work anymore, but they have advantage on perception checks. That could be something interesting. Damage resistance versus critical hits because of insect biology. Maybe. Let's look at some of these things. Okay, so let's see. Let me have a look here. What has been coming through the most, I think, where we are talking about the powers that these things have. Strength we've already spoken about. Extra limbs. Do they have extra limbs? That's an interesting question. I'm going to put it in here. Multi-limbed. Multi-limbed. How on earth do you spell multi-limbed? I suppose it'd be hyphenated. Multi-limbed. Okay, let's have a look. Let's go to the 3 Kryn have 4 arms and only 2 legs. What is it? Are they arms or are they legs? Are they more of a centaur or are they more of a beast? Now you see, as far as, and I'm busy looking here, we've got the Androsphinx. They've got 4 legs, but there's nothing here about any kind of immunity to being knocked prone. There's nothing like that whatsoever. So I don't think that they really cared about the idea of more legs making you more stable. I've seen horses fall over just as easily. Cats are probably the only ones that don't really fall over very often. Things that have got tails, like your salamanders and things, I don't see them having an advantage to being prone, even though they technically are already lying down. Yeah, so I think that we're pretty safe in not looking at that. I mean, I'm looking at the rust monster, for example. There's nothing here about any prone kind of effect. So, okay, so we're going to say that they're multi-limbed. We're talking potentially vestigial limbs. We're talking maybe those scythe-like arms. Adds sleight of hand to skill proficiency option. We were talking wings earlier, but I think that should be restricted to our sub-races. So extra limbs could be vestigial, otherwise it would make them centaurioid. Okay, so extra limbed. The Hasper have a second set of legs. Okay. Which allows them to move quicker. So then we can come back to this section here where we can now increase that base movement to 40, because insects are quite fast sometimes. The Hasper have a second set of legs which allows them to move faster and ignore difficult terrain. Is that a thing? Is that too much? That's a infrequently useful skill. Can we give them a gaster to shoot a projectile with, like lizard jaws, tabaxi claws? Can wield versatile weapons with one hand as if they were two-handed? Again, DG, I like that, but I feel that that would be an advantage if you were playing a warrior class or a fighter class rather than if you were playing a mage class type of thing. The regrowth of limbs and things, I like that as a descriptor. But I have to say that when we're talking Dungeons and Dragons, very seldom will you lose a limb, and even if you do, you would use restoration and stuff. So it could be a flavor thing, but I don't think that it would have any kind of additional actual value. So we'll park that down for flavor, maybe if we need to come back to it. So there we go. That's a lot. Maybe ignore the first 10 foot of difficult terrain, and ignore. All right. The first 10 foot of difficult terrain. Okay, cool. Right, I'm happy with that. Let's pop a paragraph and go down to the next one. This is usually bold and italicized. Okay, so we've got to handle the chitinous armor, the chitinous armor. That's what we've got to handle. That's what we've got to handle. I see some people saying they're not happy with the climb speed and the ignoring dangerous terrain. Yeah, well, we've got to balance it. We've got to look at these things, right? We've got to look at these things and say, okay, well, they're moving really quickly and they ignore terrain. So maybe we're just going to bring this back down to 30. Which allows them to let's just do that. To ignore, because I find insects kind of go over everything, so I think that kind of works. The chitinous armor, what are we going to be doing about that? We have to deal with that. We have to deal with that in some shape or form. It just needs to be there. So it's a fundamental. It's a fundamental, right? Chitinous? No, that's definitely not how you spell chitinous. Chitinous, there we go. Chitinous body. So what are we seeing here now? Skin shedding for armor, resistance to bludgeoning. Wouldn't it be resistance to slashing and piercing, not bludgeoning? That's what I would think. Bludgeoning, I would imagine, could crack it. Thank you for the help on spelling chitinous. Spelling, as you can tell, is not a strength of mine. Are they chitinous? I think they are. I can't think of any insect that doesn't have an exoskeleton. Yeah, I agree. Armor classes are too abusable. I think that you see again that armor, they can't wear other armor. I think that becomes a bit of a penalty. A hive of evil insect humanoids. Well, that's great. That's good. I mean, I'm glad that we've inspired something at least. I'd say either resistance to slash or a base 16 armor class when not wearing armor. The problem is every mage will want to now play a Hasper because that's a really high armor class. So I'm wondering. I think because we've got to give them a resistance to damage type or an advantage to a saving throw. So I think the Chitinous body, let's say, is the Hasper are resistant to slashing damage. There we go. Well, it would be has resistance. All right. So there we go. We could have looked at other things like save against charm or being frightened because of that hive mind, but I think that's a way of dealing with it. Remember, once we've got it down, we can always come back and we can refine and we can relook at and we can work out something to do that. Could we use the vulnerability to bludgeoning if we want to give them an extra bonus of some sort? Do skeletons have vulnerability to bludgeoning? I remember in the old days, skeletons were very dangerous because they took half damage from piercing and slashing, and they took more damage from PQRSTRST. They took more damage. Do they have? Let's see. Do they have immunity? They do have vulnerability to bludgeoning, but they have immunity to poison. Immunity to poison, by the way. So I think we could put in their damage to bludgeoning because they don't have a soft. There's no musculature underneath. It's all hydraulics. So let's do that. So we're going to say slashing and piercing damage, right? But also, okay, and then we would put here bludgeoning vulnerability. The Hasper are something like that. Does that sort of satisfy the throng? Are we suitably satisfied with that sort of thing? Trying to bring it in, trying to work it out. Cold damage. Well, that's interesting. Some of them absolutely cold damage slows them down, but they don't die from cold. A lot of them you can freeze and they come back as if nothing was going on. Must shed exoskeleton to regenerate on a long rest. You know, it reminds me of a story, the Fire Spectrum, in terms of them shedding their exoskeleton to regenerate on a long rest. The problem is that they would start to collect those shells and they'd start to use that to make armor for other things and the like. So there we go. There was a good argument for removing slashing damage. Absolutely. My what? Oh, good lord. Well done for spotting that. There's a true coder as opposed to the charlatan that I am. Close brackets there. Okay. Right. Why didn't it do it? Why didn't it do it? Okay, and so now we just need to build in this hive mind. Let's put in the hive mind because we've kind of got our things there. Let's put in the hive mind. How are we going to work it? So the hive mind's given them the wisdom bonus. Absolutely, sure, without a doubt. But what are we going to add? What are we going to add for the hive mind? We're going to give them advantage on insight? No. Augury at will, asking the hive mind. Has the hive mind evolved telepathy? I don't think so. The message cantrip could be quite fun. Is only going to work though within those that are connected to the hive mind. So I'm not too sure about that. My tag's out of order. I'm sorry, stranger. It's gonna work. It doesn't matter. The computer doesn't care what order the tags are in. Watch me get assassinated by the computer tomorrow. Advantage on nature is quite a cool idea. Augury also does seem interesting. I wonder if it's going to be too much though. Let's see. So let's do this first so we can satisfy it. Why isn't it putting... Oh, because the moment you do the bold... Okay, I see what I'm doing wrong here. Yeah, there we go. Oh. What did I leave behind? There we go. Right. Advantage on arcane lore checks. I know it will work. It will work, but it's fine. Just have your coffee and relax. Okay, so hive mind, let's say here it's going to give advantage. The Hasper gain advantage on... We need it to be one check. So is it Arcana? Is it Nature? They're builders. Augury is quite fun. Augury is quite fun. We're not necessarily talking about them as a bee race. They're a sort of an insect race. An insect race. Knowledge related check. Again, no, because that's too broad. That's too broad. That's really, really powerful, I think. Really, really, really powerful. Disadvantage on persuasion attempts. We could certainly look at that. Maybe let the player pick which skill they get advantage on every time they take a long rest. That's interesting. But maybe too mechanical? Are they religious? That's another question altogether. I don't think perception. I think nature. I think nature is the way to go. I think nature. Working off the hive's experience to survive. Survival's a good argument. Good argument. You know what? We're going to put it down for now. We're going to put down nature for now because they're involved in nature and they're builders and you would use survival for all of that stuff. So okay, survival it is. So gain advantages on survival checks. Right. So there we go. Boom. Done. And let's save this. Now this is being saved, by the way, to my World Anvil account, and I think we're going to make it allow users to view the blocks page directly and share it with the community. Okay, so we're going to share this. So if you head on over to the Great GM World Anvil page, you will see that the Hasper are now there as a race. Everyone should be able to access it. So there's a little stat block, there's a little write-up. We can include some pictures and stuff later on. It allows us to now play this as a race, gives us our language, it gives us all of their various bits and bobs and bits and pieces as well. We can now come in and we can start to break this down and really have some fun with it. This, I think, could be quite a fun race to play. They're resistant to slashing damage, but they have bludgeoning vulnerability. They have a hive mind. And they're multi-limb, so they have a climb check as well, which is going to be pretty useful, and they can ignore the first. I kind of feel this is a little bit underpowered at the moment, but that could just be me. The bludgeoning damage to the slashing damage to me is a 0 effect. It's a null idea. The climb is always going to be useful. You're not going to be using spells like spider climb anymore. You don't have to worry about rope anymore. The difficult terrain does happen from time to time. Yes, you can move 10 foot over it. I feel like there's one more thing missing from here. I think that we need to add in that telepathy. Not the telepathy, the augury. I love the idea of the augury from the hive mind. So I'm gonna do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. Augury would be from the PHB. He said grabbing the PHB very quickly and just going over to that spell. Boom, 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 boom. And we are over time as well. So we're going to run a little bit longer on the stream than we normally do. Or AUG, Augury. It is a second level divination though. It is a ritual. Could be a ritual if we wanted to use it that way. By casting gem inlaid sticks, blah blah blah, blah 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 blah. In the next 30 minutes, wheel for good results, woe for bad results, woe and wheel nothing. The spell doesn't take into account any possible sequences that might change the outcomes, such as the cost of the spell. I'm not sure. Yeah, that increased carrying capacity I think works better. The augury, now that I look at it, I think it's too powerful. I think it's too powerful. And as a GM, it's too irritating. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. I'm going to say that. Increased carrying capacity. I like the increased carrying capacity because, again, it talks to the race, the idea of the insects. It talks to the thing that insects have. So I think that makes more sense. Again, though, remember, the scholars could have augury. This is the basic race. We could come back to this later on and say, no. The scholars are now going to drop some of these things. They're not going to have, let's say, access to... well, then maybe their chitinous body is not as rigid as some of the others are. So maybe it's actually more like the butterflies, as was mentioned before. So there we go. The silk idea, yeah, again, I think that's something to bear in mind. Something that we can definitely look at. The Haspa are capable of carrying twice as much as their normal weight allowance. No one has looked at it, but I agree. There was a comment sort of like, no one cares about weight allowance anymore. That is sadly a truth. It is a truth. I'm not going to deny it. Except if you're playing online, where you're using character sheets that auto-generate and auto-calculate stuff that goes along with that. So there is definitely something to think about. So the fire spectrum, I do respect what you're saying there. I do definitely respect what you're saying there. So the ability to do sending and messaging similar to Tiefling. There is an option there that we could do. Some people turn off encumbrance for sure. Can turn augury into a chance. I would say the scholars maybe would get augury, because that could be quite cool. So this is the basic idea of the Haspa, I think. So we're going to save that now. We're going to view that block just because I think it looks so cool the way that they laid it out. So there we go. We've got some extra bits and bobs in there, increased carrying capacity. This, I think, is a workable basic race. We obviously now can break it down into its sub-races and the like. And I think that could be a very interesting starting point. Bashing vulnerability doesn't apply to falling damage. No, bludgeoning doesn't apply to falling damage. I don't think it does. Anyway, insects don't usually weigh a lot, so there's so many things. There's so many components that go into creating these races and things. And one can debate back and forth and around. This is, again, what I love about our role-playing hobby, is that we can sit there going, well, what would an insect race have? Well, it should have silk. It should have this. It should have that. It should have the next thing. It should. There's so many wonderful things that can come in. Flying, we could swap some stats around. I like that idea of the Tempest, because flying kind of seems to be like it's a thing that should be there. Perhaps builders should have wings, or the warriors, but we said the warriors were going to be big tank-like things. The noble cost, maybe the nobles have wings, so they've got a reduced attack ability, but anyway, I have had a lot of fun doing this. And the idea of I didn't actually see, I saw that you wanted them to be religious, but I didn't see what your actual thought was. So yes, I to be honest with you, I didn't see what your thought was on religion. Okay, I'm going to get rid of that block now. So there we go. That's been done. If you go to worldanvil.com, I think it's /greatgm, you will find that race block there. Next week we can look at continuing that. I have to dash. I've got more meetings lined up for the rest of the afternoon, but we can carry on. We can have a look at the other races next week if you are so inclined. This is definitely something to look at. There is that wonderful detect balance spreadsheet that was shared. I forget now who shared it. Let's have a look and see. Can I find it in the miles of discussions that have gone through? It's got lost. So whoever shared this, I thank you for sharing with us. I wish. Oh, here we go. Frozen Gnomes shared this wonderful Excel spreadsheet with us on the Discord. I'm actually going to pin it in the Goblin Gallows in Discord if you want to have a look at it. I've pinned it in the Goblin Gallows. So there we go. That is today's show, and I want to thank you guys for all being here and for participating and for chatting and for helping to create this interesting race. I hope you had fun. I had fun. See you again next week. Same time, same channel, whether you're on YouTube or you are on Discord. Again, thank you. How do we do the heart thing? I don't know how to do that heart thing. I need to practice. Thank you to everybody who donated. Really, we do appreciate that. We absolutely, truly do. And yeah, it's great to have been here with you. And until next week, if you watch the Broken World Chronicles, that's coming up next, which is on Mondays. So definitely something to look at there. If we don't see you then hopefully we'll see you next week on the live sessions with a GM. That's me, of course. And all of the YouTube videos are coming out. So there's another one coming out. There's one that's just come out, which is proving to be quite popular with everybody. And then there's another one coming out tomorrow night, which is injuries and players, or at least player characters anyway. So from me, I wish you and yours the happiest and most wonderful of gaming weekends.